Shohei Ohtani spoke to the media and went all in on his story. I still believe him. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us where you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you want to become an everyday, all you have to do is listen or watch every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and get notified when episodes are ready for you, or get notified when there are interviews up, like there was last night with the Ohtani press conference. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snyder, my co-host. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have been doing this podcast now for 5 years, and we've doing a Dodger podcast together longer than that. We've covered the Dodgers longer than that, and we've watched a lot of Dodger games. So I'm here to bring you what we believe is smart and knowledgeable and rational takes, making you a better Dodger fan and us a better Dodger fan in the process. And we're here to do that once again today. We haven't escaped the circus that is Shohei Ohtani and Ippei Mizuhara, but we did finally hear from Shohei Ohtani at Dodger Stadium on Monday. He spoke. Well, overall, it was 12 minutes. He spoke obviously half of that. Will Ayrton was his interpreter and was interpreting for him the other half of that. And what we got from Ohtani was not much from what we had already heard, but we heard it straight from him with I don't know, can't say forceful tone, but forceful language at the very least, in terms of basically saying it was all lies that Ippei told him, and he didn't know anything that was going on, and pinning everything and kind of drawing that line in the sand of, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah, and it was there's no reason not to believe him other than just being a cynical person or not liking the Dodgers. That's the two main reasons I've seen people on social media thinking Ohtani's lying. Either they just always think everybody's lying, or they hate the Dodgers. And that's both of those are sad ways to live life. I still don't know enough to say I'm 100% sure that Shohei Ohtani is not lying, but everything that he said tracks with the timeline, what we've heard from other people, all that. Like originally when the story came out, people said, well, why did they change stories? So they're obviously hiding something, because first Ohtani said something, and now what we're discovering is Ohtani didn't say anything. And that's kind of like, it seems like people jumped really quick to Ohtani changed his story when it was Ohtani's people, which is, as far as I know, we still don't even know the name of the crisis manager person who talked to ESPN. And it seems like a lot of my impression is they weren't ESPN wasn't investigating Ippei. They were investigating Shohei Ohtani because there were wires from Shohei Ohtani's account to a bookie. And so they had no reason not to go through Ippei, Shohei's interpreter. And so Ippei was telling them, oh yeah, I talked to Shohei and here's what happened, like when you are the one in the middle, and the reason that you were able to steal so much money was because you are the trusted man in the middle, it's easy to perpetuate that fraud and keep lying. And, obviously it snowballed, and maybe Ippei realized at some point that it was snowballing, but like there's no reason to think that I think I can confidently say Shohei Ohtani wasn't placing these bets for himself. Like, the only question remaining was, did he knowingly pay off Ippei's debt? And that's the thing that, like, I'm only 98% sure about now. There's always a chance. I've never met Shohei Ohtani. As far as I can tell, he's an honest person. Everything he said, nothing seemed out of character when he was talking. But I couldn't say I know for sure. But like all the evidence is pointing to, yeah, Ohtani just got betrayed by a friend, and so a friend betrayed him and stole a bunch of money from him and put him in hot water that he doesn't deserve to be in.
Yeah, and the way he presented it and the way he laid it out and everything else, it's putting everything on him. Ohtani, it's putting everything on Ohtani and his story to be true, because realistically, we're gonna find out. And again, there's a lot of ways to flip this and go on the other side and be that cynical person or be that skeptical person and and believe Ohtani's in on this or bet or whatever the case is. But for me, I think it's one of those where, okay, you could maybe, if it was just an MLB investigation, you could talk yourself into, well, MLB doesn't want Ohtani to be, part of this, whatever, blah, blah, the face of baseball. They don't want any of this. So they're going to cover up for him. The FBI doesn't care about Shohei Ohtani in terms of if he is somebody that gets implicated or doesn't, or is in trouble or isn't, or whatever the case is. So if this process goes through a federal investigation and, Ohtani, however they find out how the money was sent or whatever the case, and, for you to speak this way right now opens you up for, obviously, people knowing you're a liar if it comes out differently. Ippei, I guess in theory, could file defamation or whatever if he really wanted to, which doesn't seem the case since he kind of already said, I did everything and everything else. But I think it just solidifies the fact that, okay, at the very least, Ohtani is telling the truth in the sense of he didn't bet, in the sense of anything else. And if you still don't believe that, that's on you at this point, because we don't have any reason to believe anything other than that.
Yeah, and like you don't have to be sure that he's telling the truth,
Yeah.
but so many people are sure that he's lying when there's no reason other than I think everybody lies, or I think real life is a movie. I think anything that I watch on TV is a movie. These are real people, like with real life. Shohei Ohtani is an actual real person, with a family and a personal life and all that stuff. And just because we watch him on TV doesn't mean that we're watching a movie that has a script. What we're watching is a real person who got betrayed by his friend and got robbed. And yeah, like another thing that was kind of funny was how grumpy some of the media was that when they found out that Ohtani wasn't going to be answering questions, which was a weird thing to be grumpy about. I thought, you and I both said yesterday, I said on the podcast, you said on Twitter, of course he's not going to take questions. Like he's being investigated by the FBI. Everything he says is going to be vetted by his attorneys. And then we had people telling me on Twitter, well, only a guilty person needs an attorney. And that, like, I told this guy, I'm like, it's a stupid opinion to have, but it's okay if that's your opinion. Like, it scares me. Like, and I'm not saying that person is stupid. That's a stupid opinion. And seeing some of these stupid opinions that are out there and realizing that those people could be driving on the same roads as me, like, I just hope and pray that they're just blinded by their stupid fandom rather than actually being as unintelligent as they pretend to be on social media.
Yeah, if you wanted Shohei Ohtani to take questions yesterday, I mean, this is how it's going to go. Question from a reporter, I can't count on that. There's a pending investigation. Question from a reporter, I can't count on that. There's a pending investigation. Like there's not only an FBI investigation, there's not only an MLB investigation, there's also criminal allegations against Ippei from Ohtani. Like we don't know where they went or whatever still, but there's a lot of things to point out where, okay, if he would have took questions, it would have just been a waste of time, of everybody's time, for him to say, I can't comment on that, I can't comment on that, I can't comment on that.
Especially because he knows what all the questions are going to be. And so he made a statement answering all the questions, all the legitimate questions that anybody could have asked and actually expected an answer to. Shohei answered,
Yeah. I mean, the main question still out there is, I guess the one question would be like, did Ippei have access to your finances? Which,
and
if the way he's saying it makes it seem like, yeah, he did have access somehow to those finances, and that's how all this got started. So
yeah,
there's a little bit more to get into. We'll kind of talk about it, and I can kind of recap the wild time it was at actual Dodger Stadium for this. So we're gonna keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. We have a lot of things going on in the sports world. You got MLB, you got the tournament going on, college basketball, you got NBA and NHL going into playoffs. And PrizePicks, America's number one fantasy sports app, is here to turn your knowledge into serious cash because you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with at least 4 entries on PrizePicks. Go check it out. I've been using PrizePicks the last week or so, and haven't turned 10 into 1,000 yet. But it's definitely fun. It's definitely easy, and you can put some stock into games that maybe don't matter for you. So go check them out right now, and start picking and start deciding on what you want to do, especially with baseball season coming up. If you're not a fan of other sports, but baseball is your sport, it's a lot easier to make those picks because you can decide more or less on home runs, hits plus RBI plus run score. Like, there's a lot of different variations of it. So go check it out and download the PrizePicks app today. And if you use the code LOCKEDONMLB in all lowercase, get a first deposit match up to $100. That's the PrizePicks app, code LOCKEDONMLB in all lowercase, and you get a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, and make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. If you're tired of watching TV on sports TV and you have to turn on the volume because there's a lot of shouting, a lot of other things going on, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jeff, keeping on this point of Ohtani and everything else. Like I said, he has shut down any questions that people may have had in terms of whose fault it was, whatever it is. He's opened himself up to scrutiny if it doesn't turn out that way. And while it's not going to go away, obviously, we're probably going to find more things out in the few coming weeks or months, however, whether it's through reports and sources or whether it's through actual things that happen in these investigations. But it's nice to know that at least this part of this story is closed for now, and the Dodgers play real baseball on Thursday.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I'm tired of is people making comparisons to Pete Rose. And Vince, you weren't even alive yet when Pete Rose got suspended from baseball. A lot of people on social media probably weren't either. Let me tell you a little bit about Pete Rose. Pete Rose admitted to betting on baseball games that he was managing, and he swears that he only bet on the Reds to win, and so it's okay. But the fact is, if I have $2,000 on the Reds to win tonight, and I haven't bet on the game tomorrow, I'm going to use all my best pitchers tonight and blow off the game tomorrow. It still affects the integrity of the game. Pete Rose admitted to betting on games that he managed, which is a cardinal sin. It's been in the rule book. Pete Rose earned every inch of his lifetime ban from baseball. The only argument in favor of Pete Rose being reinstated is put him in the Hall of Fame so we can stop talking about him forever. Because right now, every year Hall of Fame time, we talk about Pete Rose. There is no comparison. Nobody has even hinted, except for on social media, nobody's even suggested that Shohei Ohtani might have bet on baseball. Shohei Ohtani, nobody with the brain has suggested that he's even placed any bets. And even the people without brains haven't suggested he bet on baseball. And so there's no parallel to Pete Rose. There's also no parallel to Alex Bregman. I saw one person saying Alex Bregman took questions at his press conference after the Astros. Alex Bregman got caught cheating at baseball. Yeah, he took questions, and then he gave crappy answers to him. Shohei Ohtani has been caught breaking any rules, and the thing that he's been investigated for is a criminal offense. So Alex Bregman had no legal jeopardy by answering questions. It's not like he could have landed in jail.
And he answered after the investigation. So
yeah, after he had already been found guilty 2.5 years later. And he was speaking in his native language. Like there's like, again, I know it's just hatred of the Dodgers, which is so funny because all of this happened when Shohei Ohtani was on the Angels. But hatred of the Dodgers, like, has blinded people and turned off their brains. And I just don't get it. You know, oh, also Pete Rose had sex with a 15-year-old girl. I'll just say it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on social media, and like I said, we're here again not to be homers, but just to be presented with the facts that are out there, or with the reports and facts and words that have been said that are out there, and that's all really we can go off of. And if Otani ends up being charged with something, or was wrong, or was lying, we'll be right here. We've talked about multiple players in different situations, obviously in more serious situations with the Dodgers, but it's going to happen however it's going to happen. I did see one today where Jared Cosart is a guy who was betting illegally, didn't bet on baseball, ended up getting fined by MLB, and people were like, oh, why wasn't everyone this up in arms? I know it's Jared Cosart, and obviously we know why, but similar situation. If Otani was gambling illegally, even if he was, MLB would be able to suspend or fine him, not whatever. If it was on baseball, that changes the things, obviously. If it was on games that he played in, that changes things significantly, because he would have been gone forever. And the fact that this is like a federal investigation, not an MLB investigation, is where the real issue is, because Otani's names are on those wire transfers, and that's the one thing we don't know of how. But the good thing I have been seeing on social is just a lot more people showing players in the past in different sports that have been screwed out of their money by people in their circles, or people that they hired, or whatever the case is. Tim Duncan being one of those guys, who was one of the best players of all time in the NBA, and he lost, I think, 20 million, or got 20 million taken from him by a financial advisor or someone like that. And a lot more of that stuff starting to come out, so we're starting to see the turn a little bit. It's just took a while to get there.
Yeah. I'll just reiterate the official Locked On Dodgers position of information before conclusions. Like that's the approach we're taking. Find stuff out and then eventually draw conclusions. And right now we are leaning towards, all the information we've gotten leans towards Ohtani telling the truth. And, hopefully that's obviously the conclusion we're hoping for, because we like baseball. We like Ohtani. We like the Dodgers. But it's based on information.
Yeah. And then after all this, Ohtani went out and threw a baseball in front of people for him to see for the first time that we can remember. He started his throwing progression. It's going to be a while. He's not expected to pitch this season. We did get another little baby report last week that the Dodgers could use him in the outfield at the end of the season if they really needed him, or the situation came about. But just seeing Ohtani, the way he was throwing was a little bit kind of like his pitching motion. It got me a little bit excited again, that the fact that we are going to be able to see that at some point, just not this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch him pitch next year. And yeah, I mean, this basically just tells us he's still on track in his rehab. We know his hitting rehab is done, and his pitching rehab, he's on track. I still think it's so unlikely that he actually plays the outfield this year, unless several people get hurt, or like, I sometimes when I watch Teoscar Hernandez bat, I wonder if he's ever going to make contact with the ball again, so that could become an issue. But Teoscar has been the same hitter and he's had plenty of success, so there's no reason to think he's going to be unplayable. So yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing would be is if Max Muncy is unplayable at third, so they have to move him to DH. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Ohtani's playing the outfield. I think he's going to play DH this year and then pitch in DH next year.
Yeah. All right. There was an actual game that happened, exhibition game. Get a little into that, and then Walker Buehler threw 2 hitters. We'll talk about that and what the next steps are for him. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We're moving along in the college basketball tourney, and the busted brackets are probably all done by now. So now it's time to get into it. And FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing with America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All you got to do is put down $5. If that bet wins, you get extra $200 in bonus bets right there into your account. $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. So right now, go download the FanDuel app. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, if you're not an everydayer, all you have to do is listen or watch every day. And if you're not a Locked On Dodgers insider, you can become one by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. What is a Locked On Dodgers insider? Well, it's someone that gets to text directly with us, get news, reactions, thoughts when things first go down. You can ask us directly for news or reactions or thoughts or answers to any questions you may have. And as the season goes on, we might get some stuff here and there that you might not see unless you are at Dodger Stadium very early, like I get to be sometimes. So all that there, join subtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. All right, Jeff. So there was a baseball game played at Dodger Stadium after all the hoopla, which I guess I didn't talk about it, and I kind of alluded to it. So real quick, there was a lot of media there. The room was packed. The interview room was packed to the brim. They were not allowing recording on cell phones. There was no cameras allowed at all in there. So if you go on like Getty Images or any of these other image sites, you see a lot of photographs of Ohtani's press conference from the Dodgers press box, pictures of the TV where you could watch the presser going on in there. So that was kind of interesting. So yeah, I mean, for as quick a turnaround as it was, the Dodgers handled this relatively well, and it just remains to be seen how the rest of the season is going to go with everything in Ohtani. So, but like I said, game was played. Gavin Stone pitched. He got into the fifth inning, didn't finish that fifth inning. Did give up 4 runs. 3 of those runs coming off a big home run from Logan O'Hoppe on a fastball down the middle. So, all in all, Gavin Stone waited till his last spring appearance to give us, to give Dodger fans that might be worried, those worries. But all in all, it's one of those games where these guys came back from Korea. The Max Muncy, Dave Roberts both kind of said guys are still adjusting from that, and I'm not going to put too much stock into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, like you said, a couple bad pitches. Miguel Sano hit the ball hard, the batter before the home run on another pitch right down the middle. But he did a really good job hitting the corners. He pitched well other than those pitches. And, that's a good lesson to learn in a game that doesn't matter. Even big league hitters, you can't try to sneak a fastball right down the middle past them, even on the first pitch. Some guys are going to jump on the first pitch. And so you got to hit corners even early in the count. It's obviously, I doubt that he intended to throw that pitch right there. But those are always going to happen. That's why even the best pitchers give up, 30, 40 runs a year, because they, probably more than that, I guess. If you make 30 starts, you only give up 30 runs. That's a pretty good ERA, probably 50 to 80 runs a year, even for the best pitchers. And so those things happen. And when it happens, and there happens to be 2 guys on base, and that was after, he walked Shanuel with 2 outs on a full count pitch that, Eric Harris made the point on the broadcast. Maybe he shouldn't have thrown a full count change up there with 2 outs, full count, just make sure you throw a strike. Because that the 2-out walk, then the hit, and then the home run. But it was a good game for Stone. You're muted.
Which is why this is, spring. In the regular season, he might have thrown a fastball just to get that strike there. But hey, he's like, maybe let me see if I can throw my changeup on 3-2 and get the out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Before the game, so there was a lot going on at our stadium. Before the game, Walker Buehler threw 2 hitters. After the game, Dave Roberts talked about it and said that Buehler, this is next step in his progression. He could be seeing a rehab assignment very soon. Our buddy Blake Williams from Dodger Blue was right there when Buehler was throwing and saw that he was kind of topping out at 94. not the 97 that Buehler talked about the last week. But again, who knows what his plan was for the day. We don't know, what he was ramping up for, what the actual plan was. But yeah, I mean, all in all, good steps. That rehab is seeming to be happening soon. Once that gets going, I would imagine he's going to need almost like a spring training, again, another month or so. And then we could see maybe Walker Buehler in May.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the thought all along, was he'll probably miss about the first month of the season. And so it makes sense that he's about ready to start that spring training, a month's worth of spring training, because the season starts in a couple days. He did take a comebacker off the bat of Gavin Lux that hit him. He stayed in. He was fine. Lux obviously looked concerned and ran out towards the mound to make sure he was okay. But he seems to have been fine from that. None the worse for wear. Robert said the next step is a bullpen in a couple days, and then they'll go from there. But yeah, I mean, Walker Buehler, obviously, whenever he comes back, we're going to be excited to have him. I think the Dodgers have solid rotation depth in his absence. But the fact is, like we've talked about many times, most of the guys in this rotation have some sort of either injury concerns or workload concerns that, or at least considerations, if not concerns. And so I think the Dodgers will be thrilled to get Buehler back, and either that will line up with James Paxton's first injury of the year or whatever, or they'll make the tougher decision and send down Gavin Stone, and then there's Emmett Sheehan too, who, we don't really know where he's at. We know that he's facing hitters, but, so that's two starters who are going to be coming back theoretically in the next month or so. And, it'll be interesting to see what the Dodgers do at that point. But having too many starting pitchers is a problem that we have discovered over the last several years almost never actually turns into an actual problem. It's kind of like the comparison I made a few times is back in like 2014, when the Dodgers had Yasiel Puig, Andre Ethier, Carl Crawford, and Matt Kemp. And you're like, how are they going to find spots for all four of those guys in the outfield? And then the four of them were all healthy at the same time for a grand total of like 6 games. And so it was totally a non-issue. I'm sure that's how the Dodgers pitching staff, both the rotation and the bullpen will probably be. The Mother Nature or Mother Injury will probably make a lot of these decisions for them.
Yeah. And obviously, getting Buehler back would be huge, just to kind of see what he's got at this point. Is he going to be able to help us, not just in the regular season, but in the postseason, which is where he's kind of, become a little bit of a, not a hero per se, but he's been the guy for the Dodgers in the postseason the last few years. Yeah, Emmett Sheehan is still working on getting to the point of needing a rehab assignment or going, starting that process. But Dave Roberts did say when he does get to that point, he would need about a month, basically a spring training for himself. So whenever that's the case, that that'll go there. But yeah, I mean, the Dodgers have a formidable starting 5 right now. Can be tacked on with Buehler and Sheehan at some point later in the year. Could be tacked on, by Kershaw. I know Dustin May gets mentioned in a lot of those. I don't see Dustin May coming back as a starter, even if he does pitch this year. So I won't loop him into that. But, and then they'll have guys, in the minor leagues that could come up and help out. And, who knows, maybe a deal at the deadline is always possible with these Dodgers. So, regardless of what happens, the Dodgers are in a good spot right now.
Yeah, the bullpen's going to be interesting too. We actually had a question on Twitter from @GoldRushBobcats asking if we like the decision to not keep Kyle Hurt stretched out as a starter in AAA and have him in the Major League bullpen instead. And honestly, I think it's a short-term thing, because fact is Gratterall and Treinen, at least those two guys, are probably coming back soon. We don't really know the full nature of Gratterall's injury and how serious it is, so it might be a little longer. We do know exactly what's up with Blake Treinen, and I don't know how long a bruised lung takes to recover, but I would assume it's not super long. And so he'll probably be back soon. And yeah, Kyle Hurt is probably the first guy going down when one of those relievers does come back. And so realistically, he's probably only going to miss 1 or 2 AAA starts, being in the big league bullpen. And then he will be back to being stretched out as a starter in AAA.
Yeah, and if you watched the episode whenever we did last week, you would know my answer. I'm all in on making him a reliever at this point, and figuring it out after this year. So we'll see what happens. The other one down there, JP Fireisen, hasn't. I know you mentioned it yesterday. Hasn't looked great. Didn't look great in the spring. Didn't look obviously didn't look good in Korea. But someone who hasn't pitched in 2 years, and I the other day I kind of joked with someone saying I got to go watch his Rays highlights because I want to know what I can't remember. What it's gonna look like when he does finally get to, if he does get there, what it's gonna look like when he gets there. Because what we saw the other day wasn't as encouraging. But again, it's been a long process for him.
Yeah, and 2022 he pitched 32 innings and didn't allow a run.
Yeah.
And so I mean there's definitely some talent there. It's but shoulder injuries are crazy. And so yeah, it would be interesting to go back and see, does he look like the same pitcher that he was when he was dominating 2 years ago? But yeah, there's so much there's a lot of depth there, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth with some of these guys. Plus, there's a lot of risk injury there in the bullpen too. Daniel Hudson is roughly my age, and that's old. If you're just watching or listening on the podcast, and you can't tell, I'm an old man. Daniel Hudson isn't actually as old as me, but he's closer to me than to Vince, probably. No, probably not. There's probably not even anybody left in the big leagues who's closer to me than to you. But yeah, they've got guys like Hudson and Trinan and Joe Kelly who probably do have a little bit injury risk in them. So,
yeah. All right, Jeff, you got anything else to add?
No. One more spring training game against the Angels, win this series, and then a day off, and then you and I will be at Dodger Stadium on Thursday. And real baseball will be back, and theoretically, we may even go a day every now and then without having to talk about the Shohei and Ippei stuff, when there's real baseball to talk about, and probably fewer or less frequent developments in that story.
Yeah, ideal world, we get to talk about baseball rather than non-baseball things. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and get notified when our episodes are ready for you. Make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Go ahead and subscribe to those. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text directly with us and, get all our thoughts and feelings and reactions and anything else you might want to get out of us. We are on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM either of us if you need to get a hold of us as well. You can also send an email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or a voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, tell your smart device, play a podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.